currently 4 minutes to midnight. It's about -1. Yeah, it's done really well.
12K Lotus is a collaborative project between Still Moving and Lotus.
This was a really cool project for us because it allowed us the chance to test, get hold of a really exciting camera and shoot some beautiful cars with it.
We wanted to see what happens if we are strapping it to cars, if we're trying to work with multiple cameras, where we don't have just a single camera to wrangle all the data on, we have 4 cameras.
We had Dale, who came up with the concept for it, went on to direct, and more importantly, he was also the director of photography. Huge pressure on him to not only get a really cool concept together and to get the performance from the actors, but he also needed to make it look amazing.
Seeing how it works in a situation where we don't necessarily get to decide everything, everything doesn't go our way, we're not just sitting in a studio. What happens if we actually put it out for real?
There was a lot of moving parts. We had about 40 crew across the entire project. We had background talent, key talent, we had stunt drivers, lots of moving parts that needed to come together perfectly to make this work. So MILLBROOK, once we got there, the guys were really...
Oh, do I have to talk about the story? Okay.
That night I didn't get much sleep because the shoot hadn't gone that well.
And we're all sitting there going, well, that don't sound good.
This is awful. The lights aren't working, the camera guys are having issues because of the rain on the cars and rigging.
I drove back to Cheltenham, having been up all night and all day. Got back about 5:30 in the morning, sliding down the rabbit hole in this deep despair that I felt because everything had gone against us. The team were just grafting, pushing, pulling everything together. And I don't think Dale went to bed, or if he did, he went to bed for 20 minutes and he put together an edit of stuff that he'd shot from day one. And I woke up to a Vimeo link that I clicked on and I instantly relaxed because the guys who got the shots, okay, they didn't get every single shot they wanted, but the shots looked awesome, whether it was a traffic light scene or moving through the hillsides or whatever it was. But there was so much content, even from day one, that I was like, yeah, it's cool. The guys who got it, if they can handle that when everything had gone against us. And I think Dale said something along the lines of, even on our worst day, we still deliver.
We're not going to wrap it in cotton wool and mollycoddle it and try to give it everything that it thinks it wants. We're just going to try and get the shots that we need in the way that we need to get them.
Dale had a very clear vision for what he wanted this shoot to be, and it actually came off the back of an early conversation with McCann where they had a shot in mind where it was a car pulled up at a traffic light with a red line. Off the back of that, Dale was able to visualize a full story arc.
I'm a huge fan of weaving in references to things that I enjoy. It can be something as simple as a colour scheme, or it could be something as involved as a whole outfit for a character. Audrey Horne with the dancing in the diner and the red light coming in, that just screams Twin Peaks, and I kind of enjoy referencing that and getting a little bit of something that I like into it.
The bit that sparked my interest was doing something a little bit outside of the day-to-day and just experimenting.
The creative process is always interesting to look back on. So seeing how everything came together with this and how the storyboarding process, for example, was a huge part of the development of the visual style and helping me to pull together those references. So the storyboard artist, for example, can draw something which is relevant to what we're going to be filming, but then we're also thinking about the pacing with that. We're thinking about the colour scheme. I'm thinking about the lensing.
It felt like a new way of working, and I think as agencies, I think we need to open the door and we need to have more, I guess, diversity in the places we look. How many different ways are there of doing this?
The talent were major as far as this shoot was concerned. We've got our 2 drivers, one in the red car, one in the green car. There's a lot going on, and Dale had quite clear visions on what he wanted, who he wanted to be in it, and what sort of look and vibe that they had. So Joe had to pull all that together.
With this project specifically, a massive consideration was the amount of locations that we needed. It soon became fully apparent that we needed this to be 4 night shoots. Do we do these back to back? Where are the locations going to be? When do we sleep? All of those things that is not a normal kind of shooting day for us. So we started the shoot on the Sunday evening, which was day 1 at MILLBROOK. All of the planning was still very much going on right up until the end of the day on the Friday. We kind of were getting there and we knew that everything was coming together and we were happy with where we were at, so it was kind of like, yeah, okay, now we're ready to shoot.
We were at MILLBROOK Proving Ground, which is a really difficult location to shoot at. It's a massive open estate. You always have security with you. You can't just go out and shoot. Everything is super controlled.
At MILLBROOK, when we're there in the dark, in the night, and it's raining and it's windy, things are going against us. You know, we're trying to get things set up, really hard to get it nailed down when all those factors are conspiring against you.
Normally we'd only have the front mount or the rear mount set up, but we needed to have both of them set up. And it just added an additional layer of complexity. And as you're setting up with the rain coming down and the wind howling and working with very cold metal on a delicate vehicle, sometimes it doesn't always go your way.
So we had an issue with a 12K HMI, and that wouldn't strike.
The wind picked up. I think our base camp gazebo took off into the skies multiple times.
Sorry, just an update for you.
Day 1 was one of the toughest days we've ever had on location.
You are there, you have a limited amount of time to get the shots that you need to make the edit, and you've just got to do it. We got the cars in position, we had all of our RTEM smoke machines blasting smoke at this thing. Again, the wind is pretty high, so the smoke is coming in hot. You know, it's intense, it's blowing through, it's dramatic, it looks cool. And it works visually for what we need for that. It kicks into the light a little bit and gives us a bit of texture, a bit of depth.
I like the darkness, you know, when it's nighttime, it's so cinematic. I think James is a bit gutted that got beaten by a Chinese woman. You know, I sort of took over.
Yeah, we saw some rushes this morning, so it's looking good and excited to see the final product.
So when it came to day 2, we'd adjusted, we'd redefined a few things, we were very clear on what we needed to do, and everything ran perfectly.
Day 2, we were in Gloucester. We were at Gloucester Keys car park.
Yesterday we were sort of rolled in the cover of darkness and didn't really get to see too much of the location, but I have to say this is one of the nicer car parks I've been to.
And this really goes to the trying to frame our characters and our cars in a world, trying to build that around them and make it feel like there is somewhere that these people exist and other people exist and they live in a certain way and they react to certain things, and that's what we were trying to evoke. If you want to build up a character without much context, a good way of doing that is to have someone in the world, or something in the world, doesn't have to be a person, react to that person.
Dale would have shot this project for weeks and weeks if he could. If the budget allowed, we would have spent ages on this and it just would have been so fun. But unfortunately, we had to say, it's just 4 days.
You have the best of the business, we're still moving.
It's a little bit of a cheat, but that's okay because cheating is the name of the game.
And then after a slightly better night's sleep, we moved on to day 3, which was at MOLLIE'S. So that was just about an hour away from us here in Cheltenham.
I went on a location scout to MOLLIE'S, probably 2-3 weeks out from shooting. Went with Joe and Dale, and we were walking around, and there was this glow coming from Dale's face as he looked around this location.
This is a great location, we should definitely get it. We can have it, right? Oh yeah.
It was perfect. I mean, you could not have asked for a better location in the entire country. Maybe in Europe, there might not have been a better location than Mollie's for what we needed.
So the idea is we've been seeing little snippets of both of them. We don't quite know what's going on. We don't quite know what's going to happen. So all of that comes to a head at Mollie's. So once we get into the diner, after we've had the shot outside with the signage and our character walking towards, we have this sequence of lady dancing kind of dreamily in the foreground, and James, our key talent, enters in the back of the shot just there.
Okay guys, position please, going for a take.
3, 2, 1, action!
Again, we're cheating this. That isn't the real front door of Mollie's. That's just a bit that leads out to their patio. You kind of cheat these things so that it makes sense visually. Body language extends to everything that everyone is doing in these shots. And it's interesting, actually, when I was looking at the references with storyboard artists, we had lots of shots where Yennis' character was sitting there and she had her hands on the mug and she was sitting like this. It's a very defensive, closed kind of posture. When we gave Yennis the coffee, that's naturally what she did. So I kind of sat down with her and said, and this is what I did with the storyboard artist as well, I want you to sit back a little bit. I want your arm out like this. And actually the reference then for this arm sitting out is the introduction to Mad Men. What I put on her character is that she's in control and in charge, and I wanted that to feel like she's in charge every time we see her.
I think one of my highlights was seeing the wide shot of Mollie's. Everything had been considered and dressed. So when you think that we've set up this environment, got a girl dancing, Yennis set there in a really strong position, James comes walking in, we'd made sure that all the lights were facing the right way and beautifully in line. When you shot that in 12K, when everything's been beautifully lit, you just look at it and go, that is just a cool shot. It's a cool shot.
There to, the background. That would be grand. So here we're using the hard light in to get our red kicks, and then we're just trying to get a general ambience, and that'll be honed when we come to the close.
Ben, this is Nathan. Can I get video village up, please? Copy. It's about to get more intense, but we're going to do it.
So last day of the shoot, we had to change our plans. We decided that rather than going to Bristol to get a very limited number of shots, we would actually stay at Cheltenham at our studios and work on some detail shots and extra bits that, for one reason or another, with the challenges that we had with weather and things, we hadn't been able to capture at MILLBROOK.
I'm about to spin this car around just here, so we've got something to look at. And then we're going to start looking at proper movement and things like that.
So in the back lot, we have a strip of tarmac, enough that we can get some cars up to a reasonable speed, and enough that we can frame up some medium close shots. So we've got wheels, we've got details, we've got the two cars kind of weaving side to side, and those are things which ideally we would have been capturing at MILLBROOK, but because of the time pressures, we couldn't. I knew that we can capture those things somewhere else and it not be too detrimental to the overall product. Choosing the 12K affords you different options. So something that probably gets overlooked is the fact that you don't have to shoot at 12K. You don't have to shoot at 8K even. You could take it down further. And that means that you're saving on data rate, you're still getting the benefits of that different sensor technology if those benefits are something which are going to be good for you, and you don't have to get a different camera. Shooting at 8K at 120 frames a second is fantastic. That's just crazy. I wouldn't have believed a few years ago that that would be an option on a camera that costs as much as this camera costs. It's a really standout feature for me. And the other thing that's worth touching on when we talk about the 12K is that the sensor is not that traditional bare pattern sensor which we do see in the G2. So that means that it's going to end up interpreting things in a different way. That can have some benefits, it could have some drawbacks, and that's really what we're interested in when we look at this in post, seeing where it shines, seeing how it's rendering colors.
Moving at pace through the production, knowing that you had the capability to kind of crop into it and reframe it a little bit afterwards, I think as a creative was kind of good. It was slightly freeing. I think sometimes you feel like you're compelled to get the absolute final shot, whereas I felt like as long as we were getting the stuff, you could really choose to go in and frame it quite differently. You know, you can frame super wide and have a whole car, or actually you can frame in a lot tighter and it becomes so much more about that little person in frame. And so I guess now that ability to play and reframe the narrative is really good.
At Still Moving, we have been using Blackmagic cameras for years, and we've gradually transitioned the workflow to be fully Blackmagic RAW basically now. We have 2 full-time in-house editors, and obviously over the past 2 years, our facilities have expanded massively, and we're now working from a server. We have a Resolve database on that server, and everyone can dip in, work on projects at the same time. It, as an ecosystem, has drastically improved the way that we're able to work collaboratively across projects. We can move to a different workstation, we can continue working on a project, someone could come into the grade suite here, be working with a client, and they don't need to move things around, it all just knits together perfectly. Now the fact then that the cameras that we're shooting also integrate, dovetail into that workflow is fantastic. When we're working on a project like this and we're shooting on sticks, we're shooting on a black arm, we're strapping them to the cars in various different ways, sometimes multiple cameras on a car at once. You need to be completely confident that you know how that camera is going to work. That, by far and away, is the most valuable aspect of a camera system, knowing that we can throw it into any situation, we've tested it, we know how it works in post, and then just trust it to have our backs in that respect. It's not often that a camera company will come to a production company and they will go to one of their actual clients and you will do something that amounts to a short film. It's been wonderful to be able to work on this project and bring the whole team along at Lotus, at McCann, and at Still Moving.
Okay guys, going for a take. Positions please.
We're basically ready to go, staging people in.
Okay, here we go. Lock set please. Roll camera. 3, 2, 1, action!